Shikues të nderuar të Këndit të Debatit, jemi në Shkup në Maqedoninë e Veriut, do të realizojmë një intervistë me presidentin Pendarovski. Do të diskutojmë për Maqedoninë e Veriut, flasim për situatën politike dhe do të diskutojmë edhe çështjen e integrimeve europiane, raportet me fqinjit, por edhe raportet me aleatët. Gjithashtu do të flasim edhe për zhvillimet gjeopolitike, luftën në Ukrainë, Gaza dhe gjithë çfarë po ndodh me Iranin. Tani do të flasim edhe për kërstimet e sigurisë që janë në Balkan, specifikisht me shtetet e brishta siç është Bosnia Hercegovina dhe Kosova, dhe ndikimet apo impaktin që mund ta kenë në Maqedoninë e Veriut. President Pendarovski, thank you for accepting our invitation.
Thank you for invitation.
There are almost, I guess, 2 years that you're not in the office.
Almost 2 years.
What do you think of your successor, Gordana Siljanovska-Davkova? Her job, I mean.
No, in Macedonian political system, the president has always been with less power than when compared with the prime ministers. So it is always like that. It's kind of a ceremonial figure.
Even though elected by people, directly.
That is a very interesting paradox. Directly elected on the nationwide elections, then, and people are voting for the name, not voting for the political party. But anyhow, so what I'm trying to say is that it is a more or less ceremonial figure with a few important obligations, of course. But in the last 2 years, we are seeing more of a ceremony than of the substance in politics, because the prime minister has completely covered the activities of the president of the country. And it is in practice not only regarding the president, but regarding the other important vital departments in the government. It is a one-man show, in essence, that we are hearing and witnessing on a daily basis then statements by the prime minister on everything in domestic politics, internationally, regionally, and so on and so forth. So the president is nowhere to be seen, in essence, speaking about the vital dilemmas we are facing now as a nation and as a state.
How do you see the governance in these 2 years of Vëmëro Depomne and Mr. Miskovsky? Is Macedonia economically better? Are people living a better life those days, nowadays?
No, it's difficult to escape from my past portfolios, and I have been associated with the now oppositional political parties now in opposition for the last 15 to 16 years at least. So, and it's difficult not to sound as a opposition. But I'm trying to be as realistic as possible and straight to the point as much as possible. So then saying that this government is going backward in all vital subsectors of our society is not, in my view, an exaggeration coming from one opposition politician or oppositional figure. We are worse than in the economic field. We are backtracking in the democracy. We have a clear sign following the latest charts published by the Reporters Without Borders that we are going down regarding the media freedom and free expression. And we have the exaggerated partization, so-called, in all vital institutions, including the Public Prosecutor's Office, Judicial Council, and so on and so forth, intelligence services, not to forget that. So the party loyalists are taking over these institutions, and you are not going to see in all of these important institutions probably any single example of a person who is qualified and who is with professional references.
We're talking about the state capture?
We are still not to that point. We are still not, unfortunately, going in this direction. State was captured fully according to not according to my assessment, but according to the European Commission in the annual progress report for Macedonia at that time. Then it was the state captured by the previous government. It's peculiarly led at that time by the same political party now being in power, Vëmëro Depomne. So maybe that's not an accidental completely, that the same political party is always taking the country back instead going forward. Not to say anything about the European integrations, which have been completely frozen and stalled because of the will of the ruling party and of the prime minister. There is one unbelievable statement given by him to the public saying that until I'm the prime minister of this country, we are not going to go make any compromise with Bulgarians, with Europe, we're not going to implement what has been already agreed with the complete European Union, including Bulgaria, 2 years ago. So that is a gloomy situation and not too maneuvering space for optimism.
So are you saying that this is not a not European oriented government?
Absolutely, absolutely. This is one of the, probably, if we are compared with the situation maybe with the period 2008-2016, then Gruevski's government, this is the most anti-European government in Macedonian history. Speaking precisely about that point, they are not thinking at all. Instead of that, looking for, let's say, creative, innovative ways. If you're not satisfied with the current solutions, let's reinvent something of that. Be proactive in that negotiations with European partners. Instead of that, they're not going towards Brussels. They are quite frequently going to Hungary, going to Saudi Arabia, to Emirates, and of course, they are the biggest fans in the region of President Trump.
The biggest fans in the region?
Absolutely, absolutely.
There's another thing that is being discussed.
Not of America, of President Trump.
President Trump and America too.
Yeah, we are always saying, since 1993, in the Macedonian parliament, with a complete party consensus, parties in power at that time, parties in opposition at that time, in December 1993, we have voted overwhelmingly to be one day in NATO and the European Union. So these are two so-called strategic goals of our country. That has never been changed. And if you ask the people, ordinary people, citizens, they will say yes, 70, 80%, at times even 90, 92% are in favor of these two organizations. But today, or at least 1 year back, when we are speaking about our strategic partners, European Union and United States of America, we should make a clear delineation line between the current administration and America. America is still, I suppose, for everybody living in this country and thinking positively about the future of our people, America is still, should stay like that, key strategic partner, but the United States of America, with all the legacies in the development of their democratic political system. But unfortunately, current administration in Washington, D.C. is fighting with European partners, is punishing some of them, is imposing the tariffs of many of them, has unfortunately completely unpredictable policy day by day, day in, day out, and it's very difficult, especially for the small countries willing to be part of that European Union organization, to anticipate what to do next.
You mentioned Macedonia oriented towards, let's say, Hungary or other state. There's been discussions and analysis that there's Serbian influence has increased lately in North Macedonia. Is it true?
No.
Do people like
we should
more, let's say, Alexander Vučić than a European leader in Brussels, let's say, or other countries?
There are two dimensions of that phenomenon, I would say. So the Serbian influence over Macedonia is here, for good or for bad, in the past 15, 16 years at least. Absolutely. That even precise.
So we're not talking just for those 2 years that Governmental is in power.
But this is the first dimension. We have been part of the same, speaking about ethnic Macedonians, ethnic Albanians, which are a quarter of the population in Macedonia, has nothing to do with that. They are not certainly the subject of any Serbian or Russian propaganda. But because of the closeness of the languages, because being the part of the same state before, ethnic Macedonians are more prone to look to Belgrade than to, I don't know, to Sofia or to Athens. And unfortunately, especially after the annexation of Crimea in 2014, and after that, not to speak about the latest invasion of Russia in Ukraine, Russian propaganda is coming through the regional proxies, and that is then through the Serbian media and Serbian social platforms. So, and it makes the situation even worse. Otherwise, it's fair to say that Alexander Vučić was one of the most popular politicians among ethnic Macedonians, on par with Vladimir Putin, before and today. But this is one dimension about the feelings, about the sentiments of ethnic Macedonians towards Serbian people. Or let's allow me one more sentence on that subject. We have approximately 100 satellite channels. 92 of them are in Serbian language.
In Serbian language?
In Serbian language. Speaking about satellite channels. So all of that is taking the toll in the minds and hearts of ethnic Macedonians. Of course, they overwhelmingly believed what is coming from that side, being right or wrong. But to go back to your question, in the last 2 years, since this new government is installed in power, we have a few would say, arguments in favor of the thesis that this government is politically speaking closer to Belgrade than the previous one. For example, they have installed one deputy prime minister in charge for the relationship between the ethnic communities in Macedonia, including Albanians, Macedonians, everybody else. We have seven of them only in the constitution being mentioned. And that guy is known, that vice prime minister is known for his direct links with Kremlin and with Belgrade. And he's not hiding that.
Is it the Serbian
even
prime minister?
Yeah, Stojkovic. Yeah, from the Serbian party.
Yeah.
They have 2-3 of them, but one of the... So that is a very high position in the government to give to that guy who has been known for his links with Moscow. And apart from that, it is true that in the very first months of the new government, then in 2024, then the Minister for Transport and in Macedonia said that Corridor 10, meaning Budapest, Belgrade, Skopje, Thessaloniki, is the strategic priority for their government, not Corridor 8, which has always been strategically much more important for us because of NATO and because of that axis, Bulgaria, Macedonia, Albania, and because of NATO, in a security standpoint, in a security context speaking as well. And after some pressure from Brussels, they have changed the direction, saying now that, okay, both corridors are of equally important to us, which is not true as well. It's one thing when you are speaking about economy, Corridor 10, because we are doing the trade with the European Union mainly. We have 2/3 of our trade exchanges are with the members of the European Union. And it's completely different to say this is the second-rank corridor, Corridor 8. So there are some concrete political movements and statements on the part of the current government which are then pushing in the direction when you are thinking twice about their real intentions about the European Union and about the Western direction of the country, as I said, being strategic goal determined 30 years ago by all parties being in then parliament.
Do these moves or the situation surprise you as a politician? A long time being in politics active?
No, to be honest, not. I have not been surprised at all because I know in person all of these people we are speaking about and they know me. We are a small country. And virtually everybody knows everybody, but especially in politics. And all of those people I have just mentioned have a long history, personal history, political history. Then the guy I have mentioned have been some of the so-called youth functionaries in the then Communist Party. So you cannot hide anything in Macedonia. So they know, as I said, everything about myself. I know everything about them. And when you are seeing and the prime minister who is in charge for that composition of the government, putting the people in specific portfolios, he knows as well everything about that type of persons. And when you are willingly putting somebody in this position, then it's obvious that you have different political agenda in mind.
Intention.
And in the meantime, to say one argument plus within that thesis that our government is looking too much towards the north. Then according to the official record, not only of the governmental plane, but of the visits of the high government officials, then by far the most contacts we have up to now executed with the Hungarian government.
There is let's say a narration or an opinion that also interethnic division has increased these years. Let's remember the chance against Albanians in a basketball game. Even if we talk about employment, the Albanians are talking, the opposition parties are talking about the discrimination regarding the Albanians nowadays. How do you see the situation?
No, inclusion of ethnic Albanians in the state institutions has been by far the biggest challenge for the state, at least since the Ohrid Framework Agreement was adopted in the parliament. And I can tell you that we have achieved a lot as a state, regardless of the government being in place in the meantime. Then in the last 2 decades, we have achieved a lot. Albanians have been 2.4% in the whole of the administration, in all levels, everywhere, in 2001, and today they are 21%. That was asking for huge resources, but in the first place for the huge political will to be in place in order to include all of those people in. And on that path, in the past 20 years, there have been very serious challenges. There have been people within the country, and especially outside of the country, who wouldn't like to see a successful example than one country so ethnically and religiously even heterogeneous to succeed and not to become a member of NATO, not to be closer to the European Union. Because do not forget that we have been on par with Croatia 21 years ago with the status of a candidate for the European Union. We became, with that status of a candidate country for the EU membership, 1 year before Montenegro was at all an internationally recognized state. And today, Montenegro is a front runner and we are lagging behind.
So close to you.
But what is happening in the last 2 years, let's say, I think that when you are putting the non-nationalists in the important position, and when you are putting party loyalists, and do not forget that the ruling party, has always been considered by everybody, especially outside of Macedonia, as a by far more nationalistic party than the rest of the political field. And that is certainly not speaking quite well about your real intentions. What's happening? And first of all, that type of challenges are coming to the fore always. But what should happen when you are facing that chanting on the stadiums, or I don't know, then kind of a fight between the people from younger generation, that there should be in the first line the media and the people being in power, people from the government. If they are speaking against that violence, regardless of the side that it is coming from, then if they are coming on the spot and telling to the people, no, Macedonia is like this, has always been like this, it should continue development with everybody being in on an equal basis, being respected, then it's very strong message. We are not hearing that kind of a strong messages coming from the government people. And about the media, unfortunately, we are not well developed. We do not have well-developed media system, like in the United States of America, for example, when you are seeing that nationalistic impulses from time to time by the media, NGO community, and so on and so forth. They are judicial system as well, if it comes to that. They are standing up firmly and saying that no, this is not the path we would like to follow. We should follow because at the end of the day, everybody will be a loser. So it seems to me that, to sum up the response to your question, that the people in the government are not proactively enough in countering these tendencies. Otherwise, these kind of tendencies, I can tell you that, as far as I remember, we have that heavy incidents, even in the 1990s, even before the Ohrid Framework Agreement. But there have been different type of people in power saying, no, stop to that type of mode of reasoning. Unless we are all people living here, unless we are all equal and progressing on an equal basis, regardless of our ethnicity, there is no prosperity for the country. We should employ everybody being here, living in the country, and use everybody's creativity and mind and power and ideas. Otherwise, if we started drawing dividing line between us, you can imagine we are with 1.8 million people, at least on the census, and if we divide even more within that fabric of society, then we'll use only partially all potentials of our people. So I'm not seeing that that interethnic tensions are on the rise strongly or substantially compared to the period before. They're always here or there, maybe, as I said, with a few exceptions. But unfortunately, if you are allowing this course of events to take their tempo, their rhythm, without meeting the strong resistance by the government, by the Ministry of Interior, by the judges, by the politicians, at least speaking about the political rhetoric, they should counter with the rhetoric, political rhetoric, that type of division. And not to forget, it's crucially important, Albanian politicians in the government to be much more vocal in explaining all of these situations, being on the spot and saying to both sides, Albanian, apart from Macedonian politicians in power, Albanians to be much more vocal in saying that this is not okay. And speaking with their political partners in the government, then you should, so to say, on your part, do much more in order to suppress all of these tensions or incidents. I am not quite sure up to now that Albanian parties in the government are vocal enough.
Why are they not? Because this is why the opposition Albanian parties have been telling us they're not vocal enough. And the situation of Albanians is not how it was before. Why are they not?
You know, probably you should speak with those people, so I wouldn't like to interpret their thoughts.
Yes.
But what I'm seeing, what they're doing verbally, at least in the public scene, and that's not even my opinion. Maybe, but just maybe, I'm guessing now that is because currently EU, as a part of Macedonian government, we have a very complex conglomeration and a coalition of Albanian political parties. They're now in the process of uniting somehow all of these different political movements and political parties. But whenever you have 4 or 5 at least political leaders within the same coalition, within the same movement, let's say, broadly speaking, then it's quite difficult to have a unified message to your electorate and to general public as a whole.
This is interesting. Do you think that the opposition should be stronger in all terms that you've talked about the situation? List of them, the party that was in power before. Let's say, from my point of view, our point of view is not. The Albanian party have its problems. How do you see the situation of the opposition in general?
You mean regarding the inter-ethnic relations, or?
Yeah, the inter-ethnic relations, EU integrations, everything.
You know what happened in essence in 2024 then? As said, the then opposition was badly beaten. I was a part of that structure as well. And there have been numerous reasons for that outcome, election outcome. The biggest war was we have changed the name of the country. That
was your fault.
That had never happened before anywhere in the world. Let's say willingly, not under the pressure of anybody else, in order to enter the NATO alliance and the European Union. But that it took a very, very heavy toll on the public standing of these political parties and on the politicians. Secondly, we have accepted that negotiating framework with the European Union as the last precondition to start real negotiations, concrete negotiations. And that was as well devastatingly, speaking in political terms. I can tell you I was the first one politicians in power, who said publicly that I am in favor of the negotiating framework. I said, what is the alternative? And I can tell you that after that we have done a kind of a polling on my personal standing. I lost almost a quarter of my political standing only for that statement, why I'm in support of that. Because within that, the key precondition is that we have to change again the constitution and put this time now Bulgarians in the preamble of the constitution. So that was a clear sign that the electorate is fed up with us. Plus of that, we're speaking about difficult and political decisions which has to be taken at that time. But apart from that, then government was a series of affairs with incompetent cadres, with wrong political moves on a micro level and so on and so forth. And opposition came on the level which was not seen before in any election cycle. And they are still struggling with that internal cohesion. I'm speaking about the biggest oppositional party, SDSM, and a few others, which has been junior partners in the previous government. But all of them are somehow struggling to find again their soul, their ideology, their political program, and in order to become more attractive for the electorate. Last local elections, we came a year and a half after the parliamentary elections, are unfortunately not showing signs that the opposition is somehow reinvigorating or refreshing. So they're still in that, let's say, transitional period and looking for the right persons, for the right policies, and somehow to regain at least part of the trust the people and the general electorate, the voters have in them than in the period from 2017 to 2024. It is crucially important for the democracy in Macedonia, the opposition, all oppositional parties, to as soon as possible to appear as a credible performers, as a credible contenders on any next election, regardless of when elections might happen. Otherwise, we will enter into a situation where we have one strong ruling party and several others in the opposition, which has 2%, 3%, 5%, and you cannot make, even everybody are getting united, you cannot unite everything, all of them, in order to be a credible opponent to the government. If you do not have the credible opposition, then the tendencies towards autocratic type of ruling with the people is just behind the corner.
Do you think this is a problem for all the whole Balkans? There are a lot of authoritarian leaders. Let's start with Serbia, Albania. This is a narrative of also in Kosovo from the opposition, North Macedonia.
You know, I certainly am not an expert in each of these countries you have mentioned, but I can say a few words about my country. But if we are looking into the latest analysis of the few relevant international organizations, like, I don't know, who are measuring the level of democracy in the world, including in the Western Balkans, the indicators about the backsliding of democracy in our region are quite clear. Quite clear. I'm not speaking only about media freedom. I'm speaking about the Freedom House and a few other organizations. They are saying that as democracy is backsliding globally, it is backsliding
even in Balkans
with the same pace, more or less, in all of the countries in the region, not to mention Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Yeah.
So why is that? There are probably a myriad of reasons for that outcome, why we are stagnating in development of the democracy. In my view, because the European Union has been practically absent in the past decade. After the last entry of Croatia in 2013, honestly speaking, European Union was nowhere to be seen in the region. And in the last 4 years, with the Russian invasion of Ukraine, they are absent even more. So unless you are having somebody here from the Brussels that ticking the boxes saying that you are not good in the judiciary, this reform, that reforms, unfortunately, we do not have the long institutional memory as a country. We're relatively new as a country in a modern sense speaking. Then by using only the autonomous political and democratic potential, it's obvious that we are going to lag behind everybody else in Central Europe, I don't know, in Western Europe, in America, and everywhere else. So it's crucially important, European Union, to refocus its attention on the region as well, and to please simply to be here, not to give us the award for what we have not achieved, obviously, but to say we are here and let's start anew. We have lost a tremendous amount of time, but let's start anew and ticking the boxes, because we are nearing the end of the third decade in this century, and we are still with some kind of with the status of candidate which is not negotiating. Or take this into view. Serbia and Montenegro are negotiating for 13 and 14 years respectively, and until recently they have not been progressing. Turkey is formally negotiating with the European Union. Formally negotiating. Decades. They are not negotiating, they are not progressing. But European Union should be clear on its part. We would like to see you in the Union or not. Or let's invent something, some other forms of associational status or whatever. And today, we are not seeing, apart from some apparatchiks, some bureaucrats from the European Union, we are not seeing on a highest political level, clear political will of the European Union. What they are saying in the last 2 years, let's say, last 2 years, because they have been provoked by the Russian invasion in Ukraine. They are speaking about membership of Ukraine, membership of Moldova, and kind of a shortcuts for Montenegro and Albania. That's only because of the war in Ukraine, I can tell you. Absolutely. That so-called famous window of opportunity being spelled incessantly 24/7 by Brussels people, that is only because what has changed in the meantime. If you are thinking to incorporate a country which is not in control of 20% of its territory, we are not speaking about reforms. We are speaking about the strategic reasons to take that country in the organization. Moldova has Russian troops, at least 1,000, in one region, Pridnestrovje there, at least in that one region of their country. So they do not have the full sovereignty as well since 1991. And we are speaking about strategic reasons. What if, let's hope for that, of course, today or tomorrow the war in Ukraine is stopped? Are there going to be again or still a window of opportunity? Is it possible that European strategists are thinking only about the war as an incentive for enlargement of the Union? I cannot see any other reason why the European Union is speaking about the membership of Moldova, Ukraine, and now speeding up the process for Montenegro and for Albania, just this last year or two. Otherwise, because now we have in the European backyard, we have the war, and let's unite everything which is still left outside of the organization. But that's not the strategic mode of thinking. They should have thinking about that well before.
Mr. President, in the context of integration, new integration, the case of Macedonia, why is so difficult the inclusion of Bulgarians in the constitution, which is a key part towards EU? Why is it so difficult for the political party in power?
Political party in power.
They accepted the name. The name has been changed, even though they don't want to.
They have not accepted that.
They have not accepted.
No, that was fait accompli, so to say. They came to power, and the Prespa agreement about the name change was in power. We have been member of NATO because of that, and there was not, let's say, way or mode of backtracking on that obligations. But regarding Bulgarians, they came to power, and Bulgarians has not been put in the constitution. So that was an obligation for them to do that if they wanted. I can tell you that during the elections in 24, the ruling party, I'm not speaking about the Albanian parties in the government, they have no problem with Bulgarians in the constitution, but with VMRO, they scored high points on that issue. No. We are not going to get Bulgarians anywhere, at any time in the future in the constitution. And now there is very difficult to backtrack on that promise. And I can tell you that they are still scoring a lot of points, political points on that. The public standing is still relatively high because of these two issues. 2 points have been important for VMRO in that election in 2024. They have been speaking about so-called deduization. DUI was the party biggest party of Albanians at that time in the government, with a very strong anti-Albanian rhetoric. And they have been speaking against Bulgarians. There are no Bulgarians in the constitution. These 2 points, believe it or not, have been quite an active one, even during the last local elections, when you should speak about the local problems, about the communal problems, I suppose, not about Albanians or Albanian menaces or all Bulgarian menace. Or they have one unbelievable parole and unbelievable statement during the elections in 2024. They said, Europe would like to include us as Macedonians only as Bulgarians in 21st century. To speak that some organization can change your ethnicity, your ethnic belonging, just by some decree in the written form. But many people, any ethnic Macedonians who have been really fed up with the numerous changes in the constitution we have had, unfortunately, since 1992, said, no, not any more changes on the constitution. And otherwise, we have, as I said, 6 or 7 people in the constitution already. Then apart from Macedonians, from the very beginning, we have Albanians, we have Turks, we have Serbs, we have Bosniaks, we have Roma, and we have Vlachs. And you know what is interesting? In this already prepared amendment to put Bulgarians in the constitution, apart from Bulgarians, so next to Bulgarians, we have put Montenegrins, Croats, Slovenes, and I'm not sure about Armenians. So we should have, if that package is accepted, 11 people in the constitution. So if we have already 7 of them, what's the problem to put additionally 4 in the same constitutional text?
These communities live in Macedonia?
They live in a very small numbers.
Even Armenians and Montenegrins?
We have approximately, I think, 2,000 Montenegrins, very small numbers. We have Vlachs, for example, in the constitution since 1991. Do you know how many Vlachs are living in the country? Less than 9,000.
Less than 9,000.
Less than. So, but regardless of that, we said we are the multi-ethnic society in the country, so let's put all of them. So we wouldn't like to have the citizens of the first class and the second class. So that was the political will which had been undertook in 1991 by the then political leadership led by Kirill Gligorov as the president. And today was the problem to put 4 more in that constitution. Well, you already have 7 people in the constitution. So it's obvious that pragmatic political reasons are preventing you from doing that political move, undertaking that political move, and it's obvious what is that. In a situation when you do not have any solid economic results, to show and to say, any big investments coming here, when the all economic indices and parameters are not going up, and not because of the latest problems in the Middle East, but well before, when there is no any single big investor coming here and saying that I'm going to employ 5,000 people, and practically speaking, not on the level of the political rhetoric, then you should, instead of this real economic progress or going forward, you are speaking about nationalism, speaking about no Bulgarians, and allegedly that Albanians have too many rights, and so on and so forth. So that is in essence, the clear, let's say, replacement of the reform agenda with the nationalistic rhetoric.
When you're talking about the issue of the discussions, the Albanians have too much rights, and the constitutional changes, the idea of including the Albanian language as a constitutional, like Macedonian language, there have been discussions for a long time now. Is it official or not? Or it is the 20% of the people speaking the language is official? Albanian is official or not?
No, it is official. We have, in essence,
because of the 20% of the people comprising this country.
Yeah, no, we have, in the meantime, we have accepted 2 law languages, meaning it is the title law language, but it's in essence a law on Albanian language. The first was, I think, in 2008, and the last one was in 2017 or something. So we have changed that law several times, upgrading the rights of Albanians in this regard. But what happened in the meantime? Somebody, allegedly some private citizen, not known to the general public, has submitted a motion in front of the Constitutional Court, saying that the law on Albanian language, is not in line with the Constitution, and asking for the annihilation of that law. Because, as I said, we are living in a small country. Everybody is with the belief that probably behind that private citizen, some political parties maybe are standing behind. And all of a sudden, after so many years having that kind of a practice and these laws, practically speaking, then somebody is saying that let's consult the Constitutional Court, what they're going to say. I think that in the next few months, the Constitutional Court has already scheduled a session on that issue, and it's going to be a big problem if they are annihilating then that law on languages for allegedly not being in line with the Constitution. You know what's the problem? It's not the problem the title of the law or the phrase being used in the Constitution. Because some of the Albanian parties are saying that we should put Albanian language precisely in the Constitution as a phrase, not say only the language spoken by at least 20% of the people. So, okay, we can speak about that. I have no problem with that, to change that phrase and to put the second one. But the first question which should be put in front of us, what about the practical use of Albanians in the institutions or in the courts? We have adopted the law on Albanian language, as I said, with the amendments 2-3 times up to now. But especially in the courts, it is still not in use with the level or in the way being envisaged by the law. The Albanians can use that language, of course.
Why not?
Not because some the people in the judiciary are saying that there are no technical possibilities, equipment in all the courts throughout the country to use that. And we are, in essence, having the 2 levels. One level is put in the law, but we're not seeing that on the spot with the people. And in my view, if the law is there only for some Albanian political parties to say in our time we have adopted the law with the highest possible standard for the use of Albanian language, that's political propaganda. But completely different, in my view, it should be of interest for everybody. Each Albanian living here said, what about these rights? Are they implemented practically in everyday lives? I can tell you that they are not. And if, despite of that, they are not still implemented to the fullest, then there are some people who would like to dispute even what was put in the law. So whenever the politicians in power are not clear about the so-called systemic or important laws in the country, saying that please put that aside, we can go only in the direction, because that is the question for each democracy. We are gonna expand everybody's rights, not restrict them or not interpret them in a way that will de facto restrict their use. If you are not, I have said that in a parliamentary session then, when the in 2018 was that law on Albanian language was on one of the commissions in the parliament. If the law, that draft law at that time on Albanian language, is not stepping over my rights as Macedonian, speaking Macedonian language, I have no problem with the level of the rights you are going to use and enjoy speaking Albanian language. There is a statement by the so-called Venice Commission of the Council of Europe on that law, and saying in one sentence that to sum up that the law on languages in Macedonia is going above the European standards. And Macedonian nationalists immediately jumped into and said, aha, we have given them too much. I entered again in the discussion and say, okay, that is above the European standards. If you are not stepping over my rights, if you are not undermining my right to speak in Macedonian language, no, I don't have the problem. Mm-hmm. What's the problem? So we are speaking too much politicization and too much thinking on the part of the politicians how we are going to fare on the next elections. Whether we are going to win that or not, maybe we should think about, let's say, putting Albanians here or there, Albanians or Bulgarians here or there after the elections, not before that, because my people, my electorate will have some criticism because of that. If you are thinking about the next term in office, if you're thinking only and predominantly about staying in power and not about Macedonia to be a really democracy and prosperous country, if you are not envisaging Macedonia being in the European club in the next 5, 10, 15 years, you are not quite good for the future of your country. So that's the biggest problem we have, as far as I can see, in the Balkans. We have a few statesmen and a lot of politicians.
Yeah, that's right. A few statesmen, a lot of politicians. I want to stay for a little more in the terms of in the issue of language and the situation with the Minister of Education, Vesna Janevska. She asked the journalist to speak Macedonian because it is the first language, the official language, and said that I don't need a translator. You need to speak Macedonian.
Yeah, I saw that.
How do you see the situation and her statement, her position regarding this?
You know, I have been many times as the president visiting Teto. It happened in Teto.
In Teto, yes.
And other cities being predominantly inhabited by Albanians, and I have never encountered that type of problems, never ever. And I can tell you that I've not been always taking with me the interpreters.
You understand Albanian, Mr. President?
A bit of that, but not because of that. You know, the people, Albanians, everybody in Macedonia know quite well who Stevo Pendarovski is, my political and human profile. But when you are encountering or meeting the people with the credentials in this area, I mean, coming from the party which is deemed as a nationalistic for 35 years back, then that's the reason why the people said, aha, what about the speaking in Albanian language? Cannot invoke any single situation when something like that happened to me, or if something of that happened to me, I have a few Albanians in my vicinity. They will come and I have an interpreters as well, but I have a half of my councillors being Albanians at that time. The guy who I just mentioned is one of them. And the people know who I am, and the people know who that lady is and who her party boss is. And that's the reason why, being in the Albanian inhabited areas, they are more frequently than facing that type of questions and comments. And after that, journalists left simply that press conference. No, just to say one example from my personal experience. When coming to the president, the first week, I have completed my stuff. And what is within my constitutional prerogatives, I have put an ethnic Albanian to be the national security advisor, which never happened in the history of this country. And I have put the director for the foreign intelligence, an ethnic Albanian, to be an ethnic Albanian. I have not put them because they have been ethnic Albanians, but both of them have all the credentials needed for that position. And before signing the decree for both of them, I have consulted with everybody of our relevant and strongest strategic partners. Do you know what was the reaction in both parts of our society, Albanians, Macedonians? Then Macedonians said, Pendarovski is Albanizing the whole office. It never happened. And allegedly that in these very sensitive organs, I don't know, intelligence and defense, then the rest of the people, being of course mainly ethnic Macedonians, are not going to give the trust, are not going to trust the president and the commander-in-chief, because he has put, I don't know, few Albanians around them. On the part of the Albanian political parties, it was even more peculiar reaction. They said, you should ask, if you are willing to put some Albanians in this or that position, you should ask us about the names. And in a kind of informal vetting, to ask Albanian political parties to put a few of the guys there.
Like in the other institutions?
No, I am their boss. I am their boss, not you. So they would like, that political party, we have, not only on the Albanian part, everywhere, we have unbelievable level of partization of all institutions, from the top to the lowest level. And no one would like to see that anybody is so independent to pick up his stuff as he will. So that's the problem. And speaking about the security services and or defense department, unfortunately, what I'm seeing in the last year at least, with the new government, they are putting again overwhelming number of ethnic Macedonians in the vital positions. For example, there is no, as far as I know, there is no any single ethnic Albanian a counselor, advisor to the president. There is no any single Albanian advisor to the Ministry of Interior, Ministry of Defense. So in this instance, for intelligence agency, the director and deputy director are ethnic Macedonians, which never happened before. So that's the reason why I'm saying that if ordinary people looking into the TV and following your statements, and you are in power, you are easily recognizing your pattern of thinking, of mode of thinking. And you are not saying that we dislike Albanians or we prefer Macedonians, but from these kind of moves, everybody can understand what is the path you are taking.
Mr. President, I want to press on the security in the Balkans. There's always stress. We mentioned the situation in Bosnia and Herzegovina and Kosovo, especially those two states. And I just want to talk about the impact that this any new situation could have in Republic of North Macedonia. You mentioned the Russian influence and their intentions, the Serbian intentions, and the idea of the stagnation towards the European Union.
The Russian influence was by far on the highest level towards us in September 2018, when we have organized that referendum on the name change as the last obstacle before becoming the member of NATO alliance. So they have overnight elected Russians through their intermediaries, not only in the region, but outside of the region. They have elected, I don't know, dozens and dozens of proxy websites and profiles on the social media, and which have been looking alike the already existing sites and profiles, and putting forward their propaganda, saying that the NATO is the legacy from the Cold War, that what is the reason to go there, to be the part of that alliance. And after that, after we have entered the NATO alliance, they have a bit lessened their pressure on us, because we have been now the member of the alliance and getting on a daily basis, become the part of that information system within the alliance, and getting on a daily basis the support by the engineers, by the experts, by the intelligence of the alliance with the rest of them. We have 9 other countries. With the start of the war in Ukraine, with the invasion in Ukraine, then Russian propaganda has go down a bit further, because the whole of the Russian potentials in this regard and fake news, political propaganda, have been used for countering Western propaganda, Western narratives. Because at that point they have become the main opponents with the whole of the Western alliance. United States of America, Canada, plus all the European countries, and they do not have too much of that potentials or interest to poison us, so to say, with the malign news and propaganda. That does not mean that the Russians are not present here. But as to be crystal clear, whenever coming to the malign influence of the Russians, you're not going to see a real Russians here. You're always seeing the regional proxies doing the dirty job for them. It's good for us that we are now part of NATO, and we are really getting valuable support by other allies in countering that propaganda. How the Russian Federation are going to behave after the war in Ukraine is over, we are going to see. But as I said, It was good that we became the part of that strongest alliance on earth and getting all the support we need in defense, security, and intelligence area. And it's good that Russians have been preoccupied with a very unsuccessful, deadly but very unsuccessful war in Ukraine, and they are putting their regional proxies in the Balkan or even in the Baltics. I think in a few other regions in Europe, than to do all the stuff on their own, mainly, than without too much support by Kremlin.
When we're talking about the proxies, Mr. President, Serbia is considered the strongest ally in Balkans, and their analysis and actions, them working for Serbian world, what is called Serbian world. Do you think there will be a situation, we're talking about the security threats and conflicts, a situation that when in Balkans, countries or stronger states, politicians will talk about border changes? We had a discussion in 2018 in Kosovo, the border changes between Kosovo and Serbia. We have the situation in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and this would be problematic also for Macedonia, I guess.
Yeah. No, I was, I think, the first one, and until the end of that period, probably one of the two active politicians in the region who spoke against that. Thus naming that with euphemism, adjustment of the borders. At that time, unfortunately, according to all the intel we are getting from our Western allies, then the then leadership in Belgrade and the then leadership of Kosovo have really entered in some kind of then initial negotiations and been thinking or contemplating about that changing of the borders and pressure overlay on South Serbia with north of Kosovo and so on and so forth. I said very clearly, if something like that happened, the first collateral damage are going to be Bosnia and Herzegovina and Macedonia, period. If you are changing the borders, because there was only one tenet during the whole process of dissolution of Yugoslavia, which has not been undermined at all. Since the Slovenian independence up to the Kosovo declaration of independence, that was former borders between the republics are going to become interstate, or borders between the states. If now, after so many years, after Dayton, after everything, after all the so-called peaceful agreements, you're going to now again introduce a new principle for the space of the former Yugoslavia, then why the Bosnian Serbs would like to respect the Dayton Agreement and would like to stay in Bosnia and Herzegovina? Why Albanians in Macedonia would like to respect the Ohrid Framework Agreement and stay? If you started to change the changing of the borders anywhere in the world, that's going to be a chain of events, and maybe you have the best of will, the best of intention, but the people on the terrain are not going to hear you. They will start adjusting or changing the borders by their will, with their will. And if you change the border for 1 meter everywhere in the world, not between Pakistan and Afghanistan, but everywhere in the world, not only in the Balkans, that is the recipe for bloody war. As simple as that. At that time, in power, because they do need the international patrons. If two people from the Balkans, whoever they are thinking about everything, not about the borders, about even the smallest of the things, then that means nothing if you do not have, so that's holding the back, as we are saying, or then pushing forward somebody from the key international players. At that time, in power in Washington, D.C. was the same administration and the same people.
Trump first term.
Trump, in my info, was not involved at that, because we are so small for them. But few other people who are around Trump in the second administration as well have been quite a frequent visitor to the region and being in contact with Belgrade and Pristina at that time.
Do you think this has passed as an issue, or it could come again?
I do believe that, because the people being active then as a kind of operational managers in the region are not so strong as they used to be in the first Trump administration. And we're witnessing that Trump has so many issues on the agenda and dealing with much on this or on this and that way.
But he mentioned several times Kosovo and Serbia, and the latest meeting of
You and I know that.
He said to President Osmani
stop the war.
that if you have problems with Serbia, just call me.
He said several times, even in the address to the nation, that he stopped the war between Serbia and Kosovo. You and I know that there was no war. Banjska was not the war. It was maybe the attempt to start something bigger, but certainly not the war. But anyhow, Trump has a lot of the much bigger issues on the plate from the first day of his second term than to speak about the Balkans. I spoke with some people in the region and from Macedonia with some very short encounters with Trump in the first term. And especially our former Prime Minister Zaev told me that that was in the last year of Trump's first term, that he was introduced to him by the German Chancellor Merkel at that time. And Merkel explained to him about the Prespa agreement, said this guy has changed the name of the country in order for his country to enter into the NATO alliance. It was a very bold move, and Trump knows nothing about that. He did not even enter into the discussion, as simple as that. So he's dealing with the much bigger issues, and I can bet on that he knows nothing about the Balkan. Nothing about the Balkan, with the exception of the small city in Slovenia where his wife is coming from.
Regarding NATO, the differences between the allies and the Trump position and Trump threats towards the other strong states of Europe, the Greenland case, how do you see how do you evaluate the whole situation that happened, let's say, almost a month before?
No, Trump is a scholarly example of the unpredictable person in politics.
Unconventional, they call him.
Unconventional, but unpredictable is more precise, I would say. Just start with the first issue he has mentioned, Panama Channel.
Yeah.
No one is speaking about that. Greenland was attractive, interesting, and dealt with, at least with the rhetoric, present in the rhetoric of the US administration for a few weeks. Now, Iran is now on the plate, but I cannot imagine that a person like Trump will be there for years and years and years. Simply, that is the guy who is attached to I would like to say, addicted to the polling, to the media reaction, and everything he is doing is not of the strategic nature, but everything he is doing is of like short-term effects on his political public standing, and unfortunately, that is the way America is doing now foreign policy, which has never been in their history the part of their foreign policy, the way they're doing foreign policy, executing the foreign policy, and it's going to stay like that. But I wouldn't be, maybe I differ from many other people speaking about Trump. Trump is unpredictable, but I cannot predict that he will make, speaking about the region, not for the whole world, of course, I cannot predict that he can cause some problems in the region by supporting some of the regional players and being against others. I am looking into the line being developed by the State Department and by the strategic documents up to now being produced by the State Department regarding the region of the Western Balkan. No changes at all, but at all, comparing with the Biden's policies. In my view, then, on the highest political level, Trump is doing then one-man show, all by himself. But speaking about this region, which is far away from the strategic interest from the top priorities of the American foreign policy, he is simply putting in place then the lower bureaucrats from the State Department, even not on the level of Marco Rubio, the State Secretary, and that's the reason why we are not seeing deep changes in their approach to the region. Even speaking about the Republic of Srpska, we are not seeing. Dodik was taken out of that blacklist or sanctioned persons list, but again, he was somehow persuaded to left politics.
Mr. President, you've mentioned the war in Ukraine, what is happening in geopolitics, Gaza, and the latest Iran. States are preparing militarily a lot. Germany, France, Great Britain, Turkey. And you hear a lot more now talking about a World War III and with the whole tensions that are going around the world. What do you think about all this?
No,
are we
I understand.
in a verge of A big war?
No. I wouldn't like to be incorrect on this, but I should be careful with the words because you have mentioned World War III. That by itself a very big thing. It's absolutely impossible to be envisaged 5 years, 3 years, 10 years ago that we are going to speak. What about World War III, if possible, something like that to happen? My judgment is that Trump will do these kind of things like now he's doing with Iran in different parts of the globe. But certainly he will not enter into the prolonged, anywhere in the world, in the prolonged military campaigns. Because simply, in my view, that doesn't suit his political profile. Not only that the midterm elections are coming or incoming in America, but because as a person he is like that. He's the person of the moment. He's an impulsive guy. He's speaking, as I said, he's calculating all pros and cons in weeks, days and weeks. He's not the guy who is not hearing to the people around him who are kind of strategic thinkers and thinking about 5, 10, 15 years from now. So I do not predict that the situation in the Middle East will somehow put in flames the rest of the world. But I do understand the sentiments on the part of the European countries because up to 2022, no one it was not even imaginable that Russia can attack Ukraine and in essence in the European backyard. So all of that happened and the European security structure and architecture have been completely recomposed, but now with the Middle East it is putting more, let's say, oil on the flame, but I cannot see that it's going to be enlarged. I expect that the war in the Middle East will go in weeks, not in months or years, and that it will be contained in that region. Speaking about the region, not about the Iran. And what really surprised me at the very beginning of that U.S. attack on Iran was that they have not declared a clear strategic goal. They have said something about regime change, something about obliterating their nuclear facilities, and I don't know, taking out their air defense and so on and so forth.
Do you think the U.S. does not have a goal?
No.
In there?
No, fortunately, it's absolutely impossible to persuade ordinary people that the United States of America, for the first time in their long history, at least in the last 50, 60 years, are doing something, a military intervention without the final goal. That type of rhetoric, then we should be asked about who the next Ayatollah are going to be. That's for the people at home. It's not possible. It's not possible to see the regime change in Iran without boots on the ground, and it's not possible to see boots on the ground there with a country of 90 million people, with a huge territory, with quite a, I would say, consolidated nation. You know, it's completely different it was in Afghanistan, where the Afghanistani nation people have never been established. It was completely different with Libya. Libyan people have never been dominantly considering themselves as Libyans, but as part of some tribes. In Iran, one of the oldest civilizations, then when being confronted with a foreign threat, especially by according to them, their biggest opponents in the world, Israel and America, you're not going to see internal opposition against the Ayatollahs. You're going to see more cohesion, unless at least they expel the...
Which is really happening right now, more cohesion.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's not possible. I cannot see how they're going to change the regime by these kind of interventions. Mm-hmm. Even in these Gulf wars in the 25 years ago, 30 years ago, the American at that time was not been thinking about replacing regime of Ayatollahs, because that was militarily said not feasible.
One last question about the Trump intentions, but this time in Latin America. We saw what happened with Venezuela and Maduro. He's now saying that Cuba is going to fall, and I'm going to put there Marco Rubio. And his statements also about other countries, Colombia and others.
They have abducted Maduro, and do you know who is the president of Venezuela right now? The deputy of Maduro.
Yeah.
So that's not the regime change. They have not changed anything of substance there. If they have put in place of today's Delcy Rodriguez, if they put that leader of the opposition, okay, we can speak about the oppositional forces taking the helm of the country and let's say at least small traces of democracy are penetrating that, in essence, dictatorship. But having all the Madurists, everybody being closest to Maduro, in place, including the part of his family. As I said, unfortunately, I have to say that I was never thinking that I will come to this point to say that it is more of a PR effect than kind of a strategy. The Cuba is going to be the same with Colombia. See, that's not possible. That is not possible. You cannot just install somebody there, and because in the next year or so they have to have an election. The people there living there should vote for that person. It's not. Americans are not going to vote on the Cuban elections or on the elections in Venezuela
or Colombia.
That should be Colombia. That should be the domestic decision by the people the citizens of these countries. There have been regime change in the past with political structures which are more prone to collaboration with America, Chile in the time of Allende, for example, and a few others. But now it's a very kind of a vague as a thought, as a plan, if there is a plan at all, about Venezuela. They said, their oil, we will take all of their oil for our use. That's not possible. That's not possible. They have changed the law. They have put in place the law. That laws have to be adopted in their parliament. There are many political parties, so I cannot see how the Trump administration is envisaging that kind of a process. Unfortunately, but what is the most important is that small countries, being in the Western institutions, are puzzled, are completely. Some of them are even in shock. Now, which part to take now as your strategic partner? Because Trump is going against the European allies. Trump is going against Canada, very important country within the NATO alliance, in their first neighbor. Trump is going, which was absolutely impossible to be contemplated before, against the United Kingdom, which has always been more close to America than to European Union. Yeah. And now, can you imagine then Macedonia with 1.8 million people now looking into left and right and in the center? I think, what about our strategic partners now? Because we are in the same, nominally speaking, in the same organization. But there is no, at all, the minimum level of coordination among the partners or constituents within that organizations, and that's very difficult. If we are pressed to choose the partners, to pick up the partners, it's going to be very difficult for us. My suggestion, my advice to the people in Skopje now in power is that they should not rely exclusively on Trump. They should stay in firm connection with the people, the key countries in the European Union. We are geographically in Europe. We are doing the trade mostly by Europe. The biggest investors in Macedonia are from Europe, mainly from Germany. We do not have investments from America. The help for our democracy is of different type, coming from the United States. So, in my view, that is the wrong path to go to say America, and because he is by far the strongest country, then the rest of the field is not of any interest to us. That's going to be tomorrow or the day after might be quite tricky to get back there. But if the government in Skopje is not willing to go towards the European Union, maybe that is understandable.
The very last one, Mr. President, the Board of Peace, which has to do with Trump because he designed and created the Board of Peace, which seemed to be, but by a lot of analysis, a parallel institutions to UN.
I know that the small countries, my country is a small one as well, when facing that dilemma or offer, they have to pick up that because America is American. And we are so small, and America is so strong, and okay, why to infuriate that partner? But I'm not seeing that Board of Peace as a parallel of the United Nations. I'm seeing it as a kind of a private body of President Trump.
A private body?
Absolutely, private body. And I can tell you that, I can predict from now on that no positive effects are going to get out of that body. Because it is apart from the persons being part of that body, who are known. I am not seeing the scenario. I'm not seeing the stages. I'm not seeing the strategy, how that board is going to work. they have not entered even in the first preliminary stage, not to speak about that. And months and months have already passed from constituting or announcing that body, at least. I'm not quite sure that just selecting the countries from throughout the world, they can be quite productive in Gaza or in that part of the world. I'm not quite sure that this board will last unless they are doing something, I don't know, putting forward some document just to see through which instruments, in which way, how they are going to work. This is up to now only the collection of the wishful thinking on the part of the American administration. It couldn't be, it cannot be simply the parallel of the United Nations. It cannot be, but not that the United Nations is overly efficient, it is not. But this Board of Peace is they just randomly picked up the persons but what is the core of that? Like the intervention in Iran. What is your strategic goal? It's not enough to say peace in Gaza or reconstruction of Gaza. It's not enough. In which way? What's going to be the structure of the forces being there, of the police patrols, of the local organs? Who's going to be in charge in the community? What about the elections and so on and so forth? No question of this type has been already answered. But let's hope for the best. Let's hope for the best. Because the people there have suffered a lot. Yeah. They have nearly 70,000 people being killed, and that was a huge atrocity. And I hope really for these Palestinians have been suffering a lot. And finally, maybe the time will come to give them the right to at least to live in the real local self-government, not to be. Not to see the dictates coming from everywhere in the world, or even by some of the European countries saying that you should do this or that. Just put there the people to regulate their ordinary lives, and maybe that's the best way. But in the first stage, of course, there should be the international help for those people, because everything, as far as we can see, everything is annihilated, everything is distracted. Is simply there is no any infrastructure, and no schools, no hospitals, not everything. The best that Trump and that board can do is to reconstruct and to build up anew then hospitals and schools, roads, and in the first place. After that, they can speak about the so-called strict political issues or modes how to form the local organs.
Mr. President, thank you for your time in this interview.
Thank you for an invitation. Thank you.
Shkues të ndërrueshim në një intervistë për gati më shumë se një orë me ish presidentin e Maqedonisë së Veriut, zotin Stevo Pendarovski, kaq për këndin e debatit sonte. Miropafshim.